Firearm ownership for me became very real when I started having children. After I got married, we started having kids. The questions as to why I was doing what I was doing, why I needed to be pursuing firearms, all of those things became very real to me, and I really started wrestling through some of it as well. Now, I grew up with firearms my entire life. My dad was a hunter. I grew up hunting. We had hunting rifles and shotguns and all of the normal stuff that a rural country kind of family would have. And your story may be very similar to that. The thing is, when I was a child and around firearms, I never really questioned why we owned firearms. They were just there. They were part of the lifestyle, part of my culture. And because of that, I never really questioned the why behind them. And many of you might find yourselves in that situation, but also you may actually right now be very much so wrestling through this idea of buying a gun or acquiring your first gun, or even trying to figure out the moral and ethical values around owning firearms. And you may have come from a totally different background where everything that I just said is foreign to you. We're all on a different journey with firearms, but at the end of the day, I think what we boil down the entry into firearms is we just go and buy a gun. You say to yourself at some point, you know what? I need a firearm, and you walk into that gun store, you purchase that box of 50 rounds of ammo, you get the gun, and you have that very strange feeling when you walk out the door with your first handgun or your first rifle. And if you've come from a different culture than what I described, your background is not full of you being around guns, it is a very terrifying feeling walking out of that door that first day. And it may actually intimidate you to the point where you put the gun down. I've heard stories from people where they just couldn't get past that barrier of understanding why they even bought that firearm in the first place. So I think we do a little bit of disjustice to the journey of a firearm owner when we say that the first step in firearm ownership is simply buying the gun. And what I wanted to do in this video is talk directly to you about something that's been weighing on my heart, my mind, my soul, and it's something that I feel like needs to be said, because I don't believe that the first step in firearm ownership is actually purchasing the gun. And if your first step was purchasing the firearm, I think you might have missed a couple steps. And the good news is you can learn these now. You can answer these questions now. It's not too late, and I am not at all putting down someone who may have had an experience or may be seeing the economic times that we're in and be fearful, and then they go and purchase a gun because they know that they have a duty to protect themselves and their family. I'm not bashing that individual, and if that's you, listen, because I have some points that I really think you should wrestle through. So the first step in firearms ownership to me starts long before you buy a firearm. And if we miss this step, then every action we take with that firearm going forward could possibly be out of alignment from the broader vision of our lives and your life. Number one, I want you to find your why. And this might sound feel good, and you might be like, wow, this is the way this video is going. I want you to think. I want you to close your eyes. I want you to envision who you are. I want you to ask the question, why am I buying a firearm? And if it's out of fear or it's a knee-jerk reaction or you're not sure, pause for a second and let's answer some of these questions. Are you just someone who wants to go out and plink with a gun? You just enjoy shooting? Are you someone that's a collector? You enjoy the engineering of firearms. You enjoy how they work and learning about them and the historical significance of firearms. Are you a father like myself? That changes things when you've got people relying on you. Are you a concerned citizen seeing the direction of our nation in general and saying, you know what? I need to be ready in a time of need. Are you a first responder? Because the why behind why you are purchasing that firearm is going to determine your what. And if you're taking actions and purchasing a firearm before you identify your why, we are missing a step. Like, do you see how dangerous that can be? If you go buy a firearm and you don't understand even the reason, maybe it was an emotional response to something, you could set yourself down a path at the very least of just not even reaching your potential. But at the worst, you could actually make some major mistakes that could cost you everything. You could make a big mistake. You could hurt yourself or somebody else. So after that why, after you are deciding, why am I even considering this firearm? I wrote a note here that I want you to establish what you stand for. What values are you willing to defend? Think about that for a second. So let me explain my values. My values are, I believe that human life is sacred. I believe that there's evil in the world. I believe that God created us for a reason, for a purpose on earth. We have a duty to take this life that we are living and live it to the maximum. Whatever that calling is for you, I don't know what it is. And sometimes I don't know what mine is. I wrestle through that all the time and I second guess things, but God gave you gifts and a purpose. I believe that, and I believe the same of myself. So when I'm determining my why, because I believe that life is sacred, because I believe that every single life is valuable, because I believe that you're as valuable as I am, life is worth defending. On that second point of establishing what I stand for and what values I am willing to defend, those values are I'm willing to stand up to help another human. You know, when I think of owning firearms, a lot of people think of those things as a fighting tool that's just going to erupt in a violent encounter. And you know what's crazy about that? Is I don't carry a gun because I expect a violent encounter. And another accusation people will throw is we buy guns because we're fearful. And here's the deal. You may actually be fearful right now. You may be terrified of the state of the culture, whatever's going on. Fear is definitely a motivator of why people buy firearms. But what I'm trying to get you to unpack is it has to be more than fear. It cannot just be because we are scared. When I think of what I'm willing to defend, because I believe that life is so sacred, I am willing to step up, not out of fear, not out of vengeance or anger or any wrath, but because I believe that it is our duty as citizens to be capable of standing up for each other. What are you willing to fight for? Think about that one for a second. Just let that simmer. What would you be willing to fight for? And I know right now your head might have gone to, well, I'm not gonna get into combat, I'm not in the military, I'm not this, that, or the other thing. Let's stop thinking of it like that. If a building was burning, what would cause you to run inside of it? Put that thing that's inside that building that would make you react. Think about that thing. Ask that question that I just asked you. What are you willing to fight for? Whatever that thing was that would make you run into danger to try to save it, that's what you're fighting for. For me, that's my kids and my wife. There's nothing I wouldn't be willing to do or sacrifice to ensure that they are safe and that they are protected. When I tie that together with my why, my what of owning a firearm starts to make a lot of sense, and I can start to build a foundation. What do you have to lose? And that might confuse you as I'm asking that question, because why would I ask a question about what do you have to lose? Well, the reality is we need to weigh the pros and cons of every decision that we make. If you respond with a firearm like this 10mm, if you respond with that gun in any kind of an event, there is a consequence. What do you have to lose? Some of you are willing to go to the ends of the earth to defend someone, even if that costs you everything. And some of you are not. What are you willing to lose? That question has to be answered. So take it from this standpoint. A lot of people will say things like, I want to be able to protect myself, but I could never kill another human. Then why are we carrying a firearm? Who are we fooling? Are we actually answering our why, our what, and what we're willing to fight for and what we're willing to lose properly if we cannot come to grips with that one decision? And look, I'm only talking about defensive firearms there. I'm not necessarily saying skeet shotguns or hunting rifles and things like that. If your why is hunting, if your why is providence of food for your family, the way you answer that question, what are you willing to lose, may look very different than mine. But the truth is, I'm willing to lose my life for my family. And for you, you may be willing to lose something else. You might have a different threshold. You have to identify it. You have to come to grips with your why, your what you're fighting for, what you're defending, and then ultimately, what are you willing to lose? What do you have to lose in order to pursue that goal? And it also means if you've got a wife and kids and family and you have mouths to feed and a whole household that depends on you, your actions have to be responsible so you can uphold that family, the people that depend on you. It might not be your job to do a certain aspect of the work of the gun culture and the gun community. Yours might look totally different than mine. What do you have to lose? And I think the fifth question that somebody should ask is, am I willing to commit to mastery? Ask yourself that. Are you willing to commit to mastery? And I know right away you're saying, well, I'm never gonna become a grandmaster shooter. I may never be even in a shooting competition. I don't think I'll ever be a master. And if you answer that way, I'm gonna ask you to reframe your mindset. To me, mastery is I can safely handle a firearm, I can perform high-level skills with that firearm repeatedly and achieve the result that I'm trying to get from that drill that I am running. From the reason that I drew that holster, I am able to achieve whatever I set out to do. If that is to put 6 rounds in an A zone in 1.2 seconds, if that's your definition of mastery, then that's what you need to pursue. But to me, that is a much lower threshold. I'm not justifying lack of skill or that you shouldn't be pushing your skill set. What I'm saying is the idea of mastery is not what most people would say. I don't expect you to be running USPSA competitions. I don't expect you to be trying to chase down shooting 10,000 rounds a year. But are you willing to commit? Because if you answer no, you're not willing to commit, you are not willing to put in the work, ultimately, you may actually find yourself being a liability more than an asset to the people around you. And if I'm being honest, guys, when I started shooting pistols especially, I was a liability. That first time that I stood in front of a target at less than 10 yards on a paper target, and it was basically a D-zone target, and I missed, I couldn't believe that I wasn't able to execute a simple task of putting a round on a target at distances that are about the camera to me. And I think it's important that we go through that. But are you willing to commit? I'm just gonna recap these for you real quick again. Find your why. Your why is going to drive your what. Establish what you stand for and then what values you are defending. Number 3, what are you willing to fight for? And what do you have to lose for number 4? And number 5, are you willing to commit to mastery of the firearm? And guys, I hope videos like this are encouraging to you. I hope that they help you on your journey. The vision of TA is to inspire individuals to become capable providers and protectors. I want you to be capable, and I want to be a small part of your story with this entire team. I appreciate you more than you know. See y'all in the next one.